So with that, I would like to introduce our senior minister, our leader, our wonderful Reverend Patrick Pollard.
Greetings, everybody. It's wonderful to be here. I feel so honored to be part of this thing that I got started 10 years ago. I had no idea that it would be so sweet, so wonderful, so good, but it is. And I shouldn't be surprised because God can do wonderful things. Wonderful things. Our sharer today, Danielle, reminded me of one of the things that Dr. Holmes says in the Principles of Science of Mind. He says, we believe in the changing of conditions through the power of this mind. And she changed the conditions in her environment because of the power, the use of her mind. She didn't go out there and try to fix people to try and change the conditions. She changed herself, and herself now has a much happier place to be. And that's what living the science of mind really helps you to do. I wanted to say that because I didn't want to leave that out and make sure that I didn't pass over it. I have so many things to say. One of the other things I want to do today is recently we finished a new members orientation class, and we received those new members from that class who were present. But due to other family responsibilities, this one person who is now going to be received into membership had to be absent. So this is the first Sunday since that happened. I'm going to invite Jerry Wistrom to come up to the front and be received into membership. Yeah. We are so glad that you came to visit us one day and decided to stay.
Thank you.
And not only has he stayed, he is kind of a presence that you want to be around. He'll make you laugh, he'll challenge you, he'll make you cry, but he'll hug you. Wonderful guy.
In that
Get to know Jerry.
Thank you.
And is Julie here? Julie? Not here yet. So I have his membership card. Julie's our secretary, and we're having our monthly business meeting today at the Middletown facility. Yes, we believe in the changing of conditions through the power of this mind. And Dr. Holmes says that spirituality is natural goodness. He says that God is not a person, God is a presence personified in us. Spirituality is not a thing. It is the atmosphere of God's presence, goodness, truth, and beauty. And what we hope that everybody gets is how to live in the atmosphere of God's presence, goodness, truth, and beauty. Because you have an atmosphere that you walk around in, and it's your mental attention, your mental focus, your mental atmosphere that you are always living in. One of the things I heard in the invocation today from Karen is that God lives, God is around us all the time. You see, God is in us and God is around us. Now, how is that possible? You ever take a pill? It's in you. Is it outside of you? No. Only God can perform such of the finest degree of oneness. I'm not calling it a miracle. I'm calling it a complete, total demonstration of oneness. That God can be in you and around you at the same time, simultaneously. You see, God is omnipresent. God cannot be absent at any time, anywhere, in any circumstances. So that's the wonderful thing about learning how this spiritual philosophy works. So today, our focus is on the law of compensation. Our home office invited us meaning all the centers around the country, we have over 400 centers, and invited all of us to talk about the laws and how to use them. So for the past 2 Sundays, I have been talking about the different ways in which the law shows up. And we're talking today about the law of compensation. So I found in the Science of Mind reading, and I thank Jackie for what she read, because it all is going to blend in together. This is what Dr. Holmes says in the reading that I have to share with you. He said, the law of mind is not selective. That is, it is receptive without caring what it receives. It is creative without caring what it creates. It knows how to do without consciously knowing that it is doing or what it is doing. It seems strange that the same thing, that this is a good thing for us to realize, in that there can be no such a law in the universe. But on second thought, we find that all natural laws are of a like character. No natural law is ever selective of itself. This is why we must realize that spiritual law itself is more than any of all the laws we are to understand. Conscious mind controls the law of mind. The law of mind is sensitive, but not conscious from the standpoint of having any selective quality. He says selectivity is the office of the conscious mind, while creativeness is the office of the inner mind. Thoughts of lack manifest limitation. Thoughts of abundance manifest as success and happiness. End of reading. And that you'll find on page 404. You'll also see something else on page 403. But all conditions, and every circumstance is the effect of the operation of the law of reflection, the law of compensation. And the law is not limited in the way it is used. The way it is used is limitless. And the way it operates, the way it functions, is that it works superlatively well with any action that we request of it. Since it's not selective, it cannot reject anything that you are putting out there in mind. And it is through the use of your mind this law acts, because it's a mental law, because it's part of what we surround ourselves with. It's part of God. You see, God didn't make the laws. The laws are co-resistant with God. And that's the difference. So the thought that any condition is a thing of itself tends to make it appear to be a thing of itself, but it isn't. Reverse the thought, he said, and the condition tends to be reversed. So if you have a condition going on in your life, he's saying, don't give life to it by paying attention, so much attention to it, by saying, this thing it's alive in me. As soon as we identify something, we give it life. Like people say, oh, I'm hurting. Well, it isn't that you shouldn't say that something hurts in your life, but you shouldn't spend the whole day thinking about how much it hurts, and in the next 5 years, how much more it's going to hurt. The next thing you've done is created 5 years of hurt. Instead, acknowledge that it's there and reverse it through a reverse consciousness. Reverse your thinking about what's going on and he says the condition is reversed. In other words, it's removed from being part of you. So the thought that any condition is a thing of itself tends to make it appear to be a thing. That's a principle. And it's a principle of law. That's the way the law works. That law that compensates based on our thinking. The law can know no condition as such, as a thing of itself. It knows form, but not size. Interesting. The law knows form, but it doesn't know how big or how small it is. We get to do that. We get to minimize the things we don't want and maximize the things we do want. God doesn't do that. God says, you have a mind like mine. Your mind is some part of my mind. There's only one mind, and that mind is the mind of God. Each of us is an individuation of that mind. The way we develop our minds is by seeking to expand our understanding of its potential. We live in a field of potentiality, and that field of potentiality has infinite possibilities. And the wonderful thing is that the law of reflection is there for us to use it so we could see what we're thinking about. And we can change. Change your mind, change your life. Change your thinking, change your life. That's been in our magazine for the last 25, maybe 50 years. Do you know that this is our 100th anniversary this year? The Science of Mind, thank you. Science of Mind have been around 100 years this year. And we have over 400 centers. We are in many foreign countries. Interesting that it only 10 years ago that something permanently got started in Connecticut. We've always had Science of Mind in Connecticut, but it was always under the guidance of somebody who wanted to have a small study group, maybe 5 or 10 people to sit together. But this is the first time we actually said, we want to open a center here. We got all the legalese done, and we went to Home Office and said, here is what we're doing. And they said, bravo, go for it. You have our stamp. And they provide us with educational material, licensing, confirmations, all of that sort of thing. Internationally, when you have a licensed practitioner, that licensed practitioner can function in any state where we have a center. All they have to do is call Home Office and say, I'm transferring my practitioner license to XYZ, and get a letter of reference from that XYZ to XYZ, XY or whatever, and it works. That's the way it works. So in the absolute, nothing depends on anything but ideas. In the absolute, nothing depends on anything but ideas. You see, ideas are your most valuable asset. Ideas are the greatest asset that you possess. And you know what? It comes free of charge. No mortgage on it, no payments, no conditions. You don't have to sign any papers, no contracts, no one to call and check up on you to see if you're keeping your monthly payments. No. This is a gift of being human, of being a creation of God. God individualized itself and called it you. Wow. What a statement. That's true. When you look in the mirror, you say, hello, God, that's me. You look good. I like what you look like. Fall in love with your presence, because your presence is the presence of God individualized. Your presence is the presence of God at a point of manifestation. God is infinite, but God brings itself into a point and says, it's you there. So wherever you go, you are a point of the individuation of the whole of God. all of God brought into a microcosmic point. And a microcosm is always contains the qualities of the macrocosm. So the power of God exists in you. That's why you have choice. That's why you can think of something and have an experience of it. That's why you can make a declaration and have your circumstances change. That's why our sharer today, Danielle, could say, I came here with a completely opposing mind, and what I heard caused me to change my mind, and my life got changed. There you are. Change your thinking, change your life. This is not magic, and this is not some kind of weird stuff that you might call one of those bad things that they call cults. You know what a cult is? Look it up in the dictionary when you go home, and you will see that we are the only religion around that's not a cult, because we're not a religion. We are a spiritual philosophy. A philosophy that allows you to grow from the inside out, that gives you tools to live an enhanced life, to have an enhanced experience of being human, to recognize that you are spirit, soul, and body, just like God is spirit, soul, and body. God is a presence, not a person. God is a presence personified in us. Ideas are form, condition, circumstance, cause and effect, and anything and everything that happens between cause and effect. But you can change it by changing the ideas. You're in control of conditions. You're in control of your experience. You are in control of the environment that you live in. You might say, oh, well, but I can't change it. This is what they do, and that's what they do, and that's what that person says, and this is what this person says. But it's not about them. It's about you. You make the change inside, and the environment around you changes so that you can be happy in it. Don't leave an environment declaring that, boy, that was a lousy experience. Did you ever say that? Don't put your hands up, it's all right. We don't want to acknowledge that in public. But how many times have we walked away from either a discussion or a day at work, and we say, wow, that was the worst day ever. I hate having to go to that place. You know what you're doing? You are making visible forms through your ideas of how that demonstrates in your life even more. That's what the law of compensation does. It's like the law of correspondence. It works by corresponding to the thought that you have. Compensation says, yes, I will compensate you for that thought. You know what a compensation is? A paycheck, right? It's paid. So you have a thought, you get paid for it in kind. You understand now? That's the way it works. When ideas become subjective and beliefs, they turn into mental equivalents, and the law begins to work it out. I'll say that again. When ideas becomes subjective and become beliefs, that means that it's in your subjective, your subconscious mind. They become a law that must be fulfilled. Because that's compensation. The law of compensation is always at work. We have to be conscious of that so that we will use it consciously to benefit our life experience, to enhance our experience of being human. Part of what Jackie was reading talked about when you know the truth. What is the truth? The truth is that you are whole, perfect, and complete already. You are an individuation of God. You are a point where God manifests itself. God manifests itself and called it you. That's the truth. So you could declare that in any circumstances. When you know the truth, life changes. Your life experience changes. You can't help it. You see, the reason that the law works that way is because it's non-volitional. That means that it doesn't have a choice. It has to obey. Volition is choice. Non-volition is no choice. The law is non-volitional because that's the nature of its action. It's a response. It does not know that it is working, but it knows how to work. It doesn't care what it is doing, but it does what it has to do because it hasn't got the consciousness. It only knows how to work. It doesn't know what it's doing. It works out of its own nature, which is pure essence. It works superlatively well, and it is supremely reliable. It is always ready to work on our command. That means it doesn't take any time off. It works only subjectively. That means that the subconscious is working through you, and you only realize it's working until you have an experience of it. You ever realize that you did something only after you did it? That was the subconscious mind working through you. Why did I do that? You did that because you had a belief system that took root and it was expressing itself through you at the right opportunity to wake you up. To say, pay attention. It could slap you in the face when you're asleep, but that's not going to help you. It'll wake you up, but it won't bring your attention to what was happening. No, you were sleeping. But when you're acting, it shows up. It shows up through your acts. We must allow the pattern of our thoughts to become molded from the highest sense of reality we possess. I'm going to say that again. We must allow the patterns of our thought to become molded from the highest sense of reality we possess. So in other words, what Holmes is suggesting that we do, and what the law suggests that we do for our benefit, and that is, when you're thinking about something, think about its highest, most refined manifestation in your life. Think about the highest form of that action, that thing, that state, whatever it is that you can possess, the highest possible good. That's why we do visioning. When we do visioning, we call upon Spirit to be revealed to us as a group what is the highest manifestation, the highest expression that CTCSL can have in the state of Connecticut. What about your personal vision? What is the highest possible way that God can see that manifesting through you? That's the state. You work from the absolute to the relative. That's why the absolute doesn't depend on anything but ideas. The absolute has no codependency whatsoever. It's there. It's there. It's waiting for you to take out of it whatever you need to make it the best experience for yourself. What a life we have been given. I mean, nothing that we do or people that we meet or states of being that we run into can give us the kind of life, quality of life that we are capable of producing for ourselves. Why? Because only you know what you will accept as the highest possible expression of the good that you seek. And if you don't know that, take some time to create a mental equivalent, because the mental equivalent gives a blueprint for the law to follow, to manifest in your life. So we must allow the patterns of our thought to become molded from the highest sense of reality that we possess. It works independently. It works like a mechanical responsive mechanism. It works for us, through our mindset. It works through our beliefs. It works to our limit, through our limit. We are the only one who limits its work, its ability to work. For us, that is. It works through all forms of energy. All forms of energy. You know why? Because there's only one source of energy used in many different ways, caused by many different things, showing up in many different forms, circumstances. But the source comes from the one. Infinite, because it's limitless. It works through the law of involution. Involution comes before evolution. So every time you have a thought, and you sustain that thought long enough, it gets the energy to make it happen, that's called involution. That's evolution on the inside. Evolution is involution on the outside. Does that make sense? Go like this. Yes, it does make sense. Even if you don't understand it. It is not bound by precedent. There is no precedent for you to use the law any way in which you want. It works as a law of attraction. That's the law of compensation. The very word compensation is defined as counterbalance. Counterbalance. Response. Pay, I mentioned before. Paychecks, pay. Remuneration. That's what compensation means, literally. The way it works is everything we've talked about so far. If you want to know more about it, then you've taken the foundations class, go back to core concept number 7 and reread that. Listen to this, read that while you're listening to it. When you're done reading it, listen to this again. In other words, I'm asking you to invest in your personal growth, in your spiritual growth, by getting this CD or DVD, however it's presented, and using it as a constant examination of how you can refine the way in which you use your power. You know, there was a story about a man. I remember this story from way, way back when I was in Trinidad. There was a guy who took a piece of land that was mine, and he decided to develop it. And I was walking by it one day, and I saw all these wonderful things on it. Flowers, vegetables, all of that. And I saw him there, so I started talking to him. I said, well, how did you do this? He said, I said, God really blessed you to have this, all of this good stuff, didn't he? I said, yes. He said, yes, you should have seen how he had it when he had it by himself. God needs us to manifest its beauty, its joy, its abundance, its freedom. Amazing, isn't it? Selectivity is the office of the conscious mind. In other words, the conscious thinking mind. Creativity is the office of the inner mind, the mind that works it out. So there is the principle in action. The principle of fulfillment dominates our lives. Every one of us wants to feel fulfilled about something. And the principle of fulfillment dominates our life. And humankind seems to possess that talent, that ability, more than most other creatures. Something operates upon our thoughts, our spoken word. A greater power than we are responds to us, responds to the impulse of our thoughts, responds to our ideas, responds to our imagination. So what I'd like you to do now is to look in your program and find the affirmation that we read. And I want you to read that now, keeping in mind what we have heard and what we have shared so far. Let us read this together. Ready? Today I recognize that the laws of the universe are spiritual laws. These laws are on... Yes. I know that love fulfills all the laws of life and that I am made with love, by love, and in love, living that love. Right, right. My life is filled with that love as I continue to grow in grace and in the knowledge of that truth. Today, I use spiritual laws to fulfill my life with love, knowing that God is love, and love fulfills all the laws of life. And so it is. Does it feel any different now that you're reading it after thinking about all the stuff that I shared with you? Well, I leave you with that, knowing that if you apply just a fraction, just one simple concept that dawned on you this morning, your life is going to change. Because a seed only needs to be buried one time to make its appearance as a tree. Only one time. Begin your transformation now with one seed thought, and you'll be surprised to see how you are. And I love you. Namaste.